Hi everyone, my name is Avram K and you're watching Alfei Panim Parshas Chukas Balak 2026. Korach was not only a story of open rebellion, it was a story of a successful rebellion up to a point. An entire group of people was drawn after a man whose platform on the surface sounded deeply persuasive. He spoke the language of Kedusha, holiness, fairness, spiritual opportunity. He put a very firm face on a very dangerous idea. That is why the Torah does not leave us with Parshas Korach hanging in the air. The very next Parsha opens not with comfort or reassurance, but with a chayk, a divine decree that we keep simply because Hashem commanded it, even when it resists our understanding. Chukas is the antidote to Korach. If Korach shows how Torah language can be hijacked by human desire and dressed in lofty values, Chukas comes to rebuild what it means to relate to the Torah. Korach's claim is deceptively compelling. After all, why should Moshe and Aaron be elevated over everyone else? Are we not all a holy people? Why does leadership sit in the hands of a narrow group? There is in that cry a mixture of truth and poison. Yes, each Jew has inherent Kedusha. Yes, leadership can be abused. But Korach takes those partial truths and uses them to overturn the divinely willed structure of the Torah itself. It is the classic move of every generation that tries to rewrite Masorah in the name of values. Take a word that belongs to the Torah, tikkun, kedusha, tzedek, and let that word judge the Torah instead of letting the Torah define that word. This is why Zois Chukas HaTorah, this is the rule, the chayk of the Torah, is not introduced as Zois Chukas HaPara. This is the rule of the Paraduma. The Sefer Torah's Maharitz notes that the Torah deliberately places all of the Torah under the heading of this single chayk. Paraduma is not just one mysterious ritual among others, it is the prototype of how a Jew is supposed to stand before Hashem's will. Here is a mitzvah with no satisfying explanation, seemingly materially wasteful. A valuable animal is burned completely. And halachically paradoxical, the same procedure that purifies the tameh renders the kohen himself tameh. Dafka here the Torah says this is the Chukas HaTorah, a gateway into the entire system. Korach's rhetoric assumes that Torah can and should be brought under the court of human judgment. Is this fair? Does this feel right? Chukas answers the starting point of Torah is the opposite. We do not stand over Torah, we stand under it. The foundational posture is Kabbalah's oil, accepting Hashem's decree precisely where it grates against us, where it clashes with our instincts of fairness, of modernity, or spiritual authenticity. Korach can only seduce a people who have forgotten what a chayk is. Once the premise changes, everything follows. If mitzvahs must be explained in human terms to be binding, then the moment the explanation no longer convinces, then the mitzvah quietly evaporates. If halacha must always align with the spirit of the times, then we are no longer servants of a living Torah, but merely editors of an ancient document. In that world, Korach is not a villain, he is merely updating the system. Chukas stands as a perpetual safeguard against that slide. Paraduma tells every generation there will be mitzvahs you do not understand and values that rub against you. The details of the para are not incidental. The Maharitz dwells on how this mitzvah demands that a complete, whole, red, unworked animal be taken and burned in its entirety. That is not a minor donation to the cause, it is a sacrifice of significant monetary value. Torah as chayk does not only live in the corner of life labeled religion, it claims your body, your time, your money, your honor. It asks you to learn when you are tired, to give when it hurts, to accept a psak that does not align with your intuition. Korach's promise is spiritual greatness without cost. Chukas responds, if your Torah has never burned something precious on the altar of obedience, it is not yet Chukas HaTorah. There's another layer to be considered. Authentic Torah authority is not a perk. It is a willingness to bear confusion, criticism, and sometimes personal loss for the sake of a chayk that the generation may not yet understand. The leader stands between a people and the divine and says, it is not my will or yours, it is his. Seen this way, the placement of Chukas after Korach is not an accident. It is Hashem rebuilding the inner foundations of Am Yisrael after a great trauma. Korach proved how easily we can be impressed by arguments that sound religious, but are rooted in selfishness and narcissism. The nation has been trained, however briefly, to believe that Kedusha and equality and feeling right are the final authorities. Before they can move on to battles and conquests, the complex responsibilities of history, Hashem must reset the relationship. Zois Chukas Torah. From now on, no, the Torah does not orbit you. You orbit the Torah. For us, this is not merely a rebuttal of others. It is a mirror. Every time I find myself saying this halacha cannot be, it's not sensitive, it's not modern, it's not reasonable, I am standing with Kairach. Every time I insist that a mitzvah must express my understanding of compassion or justice in order to be legitimate, I have quietly placed my own seichel on the throne and asked the Torah to bow to it. Every time I keep a din I don't yet feel, or accept a boundary I can't fully explain, and honor Talmidei Chachamim whose world is not yet mine, I help heal the crack that Kairach opened. That is the avodah of Parshas Chukas, to reclaim chok as a living category in our avodas Hashem. Not because Torah is irrational, but because it is above our reason. Not because our values are worthless, but because they need to be shaped and corrected by something higher than them. When a generation remembers how to say Na'aseh v'nishma in practice, first we do, then we seek to understand, Kairach loses his power of seduction. His speeches no longer land because there is already a deeper loyalty beneath all the rhetoric, a loyalty to Zois Chukas Torah that cannot be talked away. Have a wonderful Shabbos. My name is Avram K., and you are watching Alfei Panim.